Hey everybody, it's your pal Mike Messier. Now this is a very special pro wrestling. This is a pro wrestling live memory, which I don't think I've done too often before, or if at all. So if you're a pro wrestling fan, you might that's Jim Cornette. Now these are actual photographs taken for me when I was a mere infant, attending the Great American Bash 1989. So these photos, unless you are a personal friend of mine and have been in my home, you have not seen these photographs before. That's the infamous Jim Cornette and the ladder match and Paul Heyman. Yes, the same Paul Heyman that's around today. So we're going through these pro wrestling memories, and some of the photographs have been displaced because I've used them for other scanning. I've scanned a few of them in, probably the better ones. I've already scanned into my computers at different times. So, but here's what Bill Irwin, he wrestled Brian Pillman. I think we've got some of the two ring battle royal action. That's a good shot of Flying Brian. I think he's coming off on Danny Spivey in the King of the Hill Battle Royal. So yes, the Great American Bash, July 23rd, and today is July 23rd. That's why I want to talk to the wrestling community about the importance of this Great American Bash. Now, look, I know the WWE Network is your go-to thing for a lot of things. I went to the WWE Network to see what they had for the Great American Bash '89, and for whatever reason, their video feed or what they have on there on the network, on the WWE Network, says technical difficulties. It's typical of the WWE to have technical difficulties when it comes to a NWA showcase. Right? So there are some photographs. I do have other photographs. Once again, if you missed them earlier, that's Jim Cornette. Now the whole show. Check out these autographs. Okay, God, you see Bob Cottle's in that. Jim Ross, I think Paul Heyman, I think David Crockett, Ranger Ross of all people. Um, let's see who we got. I want to say that's David Crockett's autograph. Bob Cottle, Jim Ross, and Gordon Soley's autograph. We're not messing around here, folks. This is the real deal. Okay. Jim Ross, I think. I believe that's Jim Ross's autograph. The light is kind of tough on this. This Ranger Ross right in the middle, for what that's worth. Lance Russell. Lance Russell put the NWA on there. Lance Russell's autograph. Okay. So if you're a fan of pro wrestling, Paul Heyman with a nice Paul E 1989. Oh yes, so I can go through all the matches and analyze them, but reality is this is a show I attended with friends. We were young guys, and it was a big day in the big city of Baltimore. We get there, we go to the show, had great seats. Place wasn't entirely sold out, but it was close, probably 1,000 away from a sellout. Had some good, interesting wrestling fans behind us, some educated guys, probably 10 years older than us, were telling us wonderful things. I think they informed us. See, this is back when you didn't have, the Wrestling Observer, or you didn't have the internet. I think these guys were telling us that Tully and Arden just won the tag team titles over Demolition. So we were all excited about that. Further emphasized our NWA heritage. Basically, what were some of the fun moments of this event? Really just a great fucking show. And I mean, people harp about this pay-per-view, and sometimes other people will look at it now and say, oh, what was the big deal? It had 3 or 4 good matches. At the time, this was the first pay-per-view that Ric Flair was a babyface at, as far as I know. Steamboat and Flair had this wonderful series, this 3 big show series, but now we had Terry Funk as a challenger. Ric Flair was the champion. He was the babyface, and really the Carolinas, Baltimore, all the cities, Philadelphia, that loved Ric Flair as a heel now felt validated because we could cheer him. Dusty Rhodes wasn't on this show, so that was a noticeable thing. But you know what? It was time for some new talent. It was time for some top guys, and Dusty really did hog up a lot of the spotlight. So without Dusty, you had room for guys like Sting, Steamboat, but Steamboat wasn't that popular either. But you had some of these, to be honest, Steamboat got a lot of boos because he was seen as an outsider. He was seen, if ever Steamboat was going to go heel, He could have gone heel in 1989 in the NWA. Luger was getting a lot of cheers. So we'll go through this whole show, and well, like I said, match by match analysis. But basically, after the show, I remember we went on a hunt for meeting some of the wrestlers or meeting the autographs, and I think that's where we got the majority of these autographs. Or I did. I've held on to them all these years later, framed it and everything. But meeting Terry Funk, I remember we went to some hotel where we thought the wrestlers might be, and a lot of this stuff was just based on hunches. And I saw Terry Funk coming out of his car, and he still had his towel around his neck, and he still had like his cowboy hat on. And I remember looking up to this guy like he was 7 feet tall and saying, "Hey, can I get an autograph or something?" And he just kind of growled at me that he would come back down later, meaning the hotel. Of course, he never came back down. I ended up getting to a conversation with Paul Heyman, and I was a young man, and I basically said, like, this was after the show, after the pay-per-view, and if you remember, the Samoan SWAT team, the SST, had wrestled in the War Games, and I remember saying to Paul, E. Dangerously, is how we knew him at the time, "Hey, where's the SST?" And Heyman said, "The strip club." And I said, "Are they performing tonight?" So I think Heyman, I thought he was fucking around with me, but in retrospect, he probably wasn't. He was probably telling the truth. And I was making a reference to their man boobs. So I got a little gist on Heyman. What else? At the time I had met Jim Ross a few times at the 88 Bash and the 89 Bash. So much of a nicer guy to me then than he was years later. Maybe I'll tell you that story some other time. But this Great American Bash, July 23rd, if you've never watched it, and this, not to berate the young wrestling fans, but if you've never watched the Great American Bash 1989, what the hell are you waiting for? You watch every single goddamn match. Watch the Flying Brian Pillman versus Bill Irwin match. Watch the Skyscrapers match. July 23rd is part of pro wrestling history. I've got the Road Warriors shirt on to commemorate. This was one of the last Road Warriors pay-per-views before they were off and abandoned. They were off to the WWF for the Legion of Doom routine. But I'm just telling you, today, July 23rd, 1989, is an important part of your pro wrestling lineage, your heritage. You should own this day. This should be a national holiday for pro wrestling fans. Flair versus Funk, Steamboat Luger. The War Games did not have blood. Michael Hayes even cut a promo on that weeks later about the Baltimore with Ray Iannucci who not allowed blood. Great American Bash Glory Days. It was interesting. They called it the Glory Days. There was a song by Bruce Springsteen, The Glory Days, that came out, 5 years earlier. But anyway, this was a great fucking show. Had a great fucking time. Muta Sting. That's really the gem of this show. It was a short match. I think it was just a 6 or 7 minute match. And it was almost like a match that you got some great spots, you get some great moments in and some real intensity, but you really felt like, wow, these guys will be wrestling each other again. And they were. I mean, they had a great feud, Sting and Muta. Other thoughts on the show. I met Larry Sharp, and he had the young Papa Shango with him at the time, Marty, I believe his name is. And I took a picture somewhere of those two guys together, the young Papa Shango, who became Kama, who became the Godfather, and Larry Sharp. So they were there. It was really a fun event to go to as a young fan and really appreciate the NWA. And, it was kind of ironic that it was called the Glory Days, because at the time, having just been sold from Jim Crockett to Ted Turner, a lot of people were fearing that the glory days were now over, that the Jim Crockett era of WCW or NWA, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, was over, and now we were stuck with the WWF as this juggernaut. But for a while there, Ted Turner hung in. We all know what happened with Eric Bischoff and Nitro and all that stuff. But to call the show the Glory Days even was a statement. It was a statement that we're not going quietly into that still night. We're not letting these bastards with their LJN action figures and their Hasbro action figures buy and sell pro wrestling as they see fit. We're doing our own thing. We're doing our own show. So the Great American Bash, 1989, it's a prolific day. It's a powerful day. It's a day of your NWA lineage, your NWA heritage. I want you to own this day. I want you to celebrate. I want you to watch that show, watch those matches, Flair versus Funk, all the wonderful things, the two-ring setup. See, the WWF never had the goddamn balls to do a two-ring setup. The NWA did, the National Wrestling Alliance. So there you fucking have it, folks. As far as other personal memories, I mean, I can just remember really the excitement of being a young guy going to this show. A friend of mine driving us all to this show. That feeling of independence, of enthusiasm. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't call to check in with anybody. We just fucking went. You know what I mean? And I think that freedom of American male freedom or female freedom, but freedom to not feel like you have to bring a cell phone with you and check and tweet and tell everybody what you're doing. You go to the goddamn show. You bring a real camera like a man, and you take some fucking pictures and you get some fucking autographs. And I don't know if that goddamn freedom is allowed anymore, to be quite honest with you. Even before this COVID nightmare, everybody was, if you ate a sandwich, you had to tweet a picture of your sandwich. If you know what I mean? So look, everybody needs attention, and hey, I'm here on YouTube, so I can't, claim to be holier than thou. But just to enjoy an experience like the Great American Bash '89, it's not that expensive. They were probably $15 or $20, whatever they were. It did not seem to be an overpriced situation. It did not seem like we were certainly getting our money's worth. We were certainly happy to be there. So MikeMessier.com. Of course, you can always find me on the Wrestling with the Future podcast with great guests like the handsome Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant, Magnum TA, Baby Doll, all the wonderful guests on the show. We do have a Wrestling Future promo code for Manscaped.com. But most importantly, remember, Mike Messier YouTube channel has got tons of great stuff. I've got an interview with Bob Backlund. I've got the Eliminator John Cronus movie, Wrestling Son. Raven makes an appearance in Disregard the Vampire, a Mike Messier documentary. And plenty of the Crockett Cup memories, plenty of wonderful memories you can find, the Pro Wrestling Rants, the Pro Wrestling Memories, the Pro Wrestling Tributes, all right here on Mike Messier. So give it a like, give it a subscribe, all that bullshit. But remember, most importantly, the reason why I came to you today, folks, is to celebrate and remind you of your NWA heritage, your legacy. And don't let the goddamn WWE sodomize that, okay? Mike Messier signing off. If I see you on the sidewalk or something, say hello, Mike Messier.